Coming up, a conversation with the president of the Commonwealth of Virginia's largest independent bank. That's right, we're about to get plugged in on the business of banking with Atlantic Union's Maria Tedesco. So, Maria, welcome.
Hi, it's great to be with you.
Well, it's great to be with you. I realize we're relative neighbors at the moment. We're both in the DMV. I'm just up in DC, while you're about 100 miles south, I believe, down in Richmond.
Yep.
When we were kind of getting ready for this, we realized we share more than just the Mid-Atlantic connection, though. We share something of a Commonwealth connection. I grew up in Needham, Massachusetts, which I understand you spent a little time with as well.
I
Okay.
love Massachusetts and spent time growing up in many different areas in Massachusetts. So I never thought I'd see myself moving to the South, but here I am. And they accept me down here. So it's good.
Well, as I say, it's wicked awesome here. It's wicked awesome in the
right.
Mid-Atlantic.
Plain talking Boston comes to Virginia.
You got it.
Well, Steve's parking the car out in Scottsdale,
Parking the car in Scottsdale.
and he's laughing all the way in from our Scottsdale studio. So we're going to have a little bit of fun today as we share our enthusiasm for this really wonderful industry that we're all a part of. Like we've done in the past, we're going to reference a handful of famous musicians and their lyrics to get our chat up and running. So, Steve, I thought we'd just hop right in. Maybe you could give me a little Simon and Garfunkel reference to get everything with Maria really going in the right direction.
You bet. Everybody's looking into 2024, Al and Maria, and it's not great, but it's a time where we say it's a bridge year. We're gonna get there through this, and then there's gonna be great growth and prosperity. So Simon and Garfunkel, like a bridge over troubled water. And I think what's great, just for everybody in the audience, Maria's background is great. Again, large scaling regional community bank, but also, Maria, in your background, small community banks, large national banks, Canadian banks. So you've seen it all. And I think you're kind of bringing that perspective to a very entrepreneurial organization. But, Maria, 23, the year of liquidity, right? Our first question for you is, given the challenges of this year related to liquidity, how has that changed your thoughts on the business model of a regional bank? What do you see as different about the future when it comes to raising deposits, maintaining liquidity to be a solid balance sheet lender?
Absolutely. The interesting thing is that has not changed our view. In fact, it's confirmed the resilience of our model. We're a bank that just cares deeply about our customers and our communities. Listen, we make loans, we take deposits. Yeah, we stick to our nitty. Maybe for some that might sound really boring, but we don't do anything that's off brand or off strategy. And thank goodness. I feel like that bridge is going to be a little bit easier for us because of that. It confirmed what we've just experienced, that we have a granular and stable depository franchise with primary account holders that see us as their relationship bank. And by the way, there's nothing complicated about our model, but it's proven the test of time over 120-year history. So been around for a long time, and it's still working, and I believe it'll continue to work. We do provide economically beneficial products and services, obviously, that help people and help their business. It's that simple, and it just works. In fact, we've seen our deposits grow on an annualized rate of about 7% through the third quarter of 2023, which just proves we have a real deposit base that values us. And I think people say, well, why do you say that? Well, our customers are rational. They do seek higher rates. They come to us because they trust us as their advisor.
Yeah, how about, can I ask, in the business world, you probably talked to a lot of your larger business customers, and they're underwriting your safety and soundness. How are those conversations going? Because it sounds like they're saying, yeah, I trust you with money up over above an insured cap these days.
We had lots of conversations. The good news at AUB, 23% of our deposits are uninsured.
Low number.
So that's less than the average. I think the average is 30%, right? And when you look at our customers, their accounts average our customer accounts average about 19,000. Our business accounts are 100,000. So they're
Wow.
pretty hefty, good relationships. And I will say, I certainly heard lots of banks that were like beating their chest in this rising rate environment that they could pay zero to low rates to keep customers. Well, that's not true. So I would say we did a good job at talking to our customers. We did not see a lot of money fly out. We kept very focused on it, kept trying to raise rates and stay in lots of tight communication with our particularly our business customers.
It's got to be good going into Q3 saying, hey, Street, we grew through 7%. So that congrats to you
Sure
and your
did.
team on that.
Sure did.
Yeah, now as I listen to the two of you talk, you've got to be able to execute, and it's that discipline of being able to show up every day and perform, perform, perform. You're talking about providing an exceptional client experience, and so I think this is a wonderful time to bring a little song that says it's more than a feeling. When I hear that old song they used to play, I begin dreaming. And Maria, this of course is a nod to the city of Boston and the song "More Than a Feeling."
To Boston.
Good old
Exactly.
Boston.
For a good old Boston. You guys are going to get tired hearing us, love on the city on a hill. But where do you really see Atlantic Union differentiating the customer experience as you have? A lot of people talk about it, but clearly something's resonating.
I'm going to say things that you probably heard lots of other bankers say, but we do have a distinct approach to delivering that customer experience that aligns just perfectly with our values, right? We have core values: caring, courageous, committed. It's that simple. But we're not just like any other bank. Our financial institution, you see it and you feel it everywhere. It deeply cares about our customers and our communities. And, we have that good old brand promise that reflects the dedication to our customers. And I know you've heard other banks talk about their brand and relationship banking, but for us, it's uniquely, deeply embedded in our ecosystem. And by the way, I've worked at many banks, so I've seen it elsewhere,
Yep.
but not to the degree that we have it at AUB. It's something about our 120 years. It's deeply rooted uh, in the culture. We believe in being authentically human, but digitally forward. And our commitment to authenticity, that means that we care about our customers, we care about our clients, we try hard to understand their financial needs. And I would say we foster real, meaningful relationships that go beyond, what you normally would do. Let me just give you an example. When I think about myself and how we differentiate our service to our clients, I meet customers all the time for my whole life, right? Working in banks. But here, I feel that I can personally acquire new to bank clients and spend time with our clients. And I'm always selling the benefits of AUB. And the first thing I do is I give them my personal cell phone, and they're blown away by that. I'm the president and chief operating officer, and I say, you can call me anytime. And people say, well, like, they find real value in knowing they can speak directly to the president if they need something. And most customers can't get to a senior leader or speak to someone in charge. I'll give you an example. I recently was dropped off my car and did a ride share with a woman. um, the gentleman was taking us back to our offices, and she was complaining about her 30 years as a customer of a very local large bank. And she says, I just don't know anyone anymore. And before the ride was over, I got her appointment at our branch. I moved her rather substantial relationship. And guess what? I made a new friend. And she knows me personally and finds comfort in that.
And you could write off that Uber ride. That sounds like a
I
great
yeah,
business
probably
expense.
could have. Well, yeah. But that's the human side. But it's a world where digital advancers are also crucial. So we combine the best of both worlds. We offer all the digital banking solutions you can get in a big bank, because guess what? We compete with those big banks every day and win business from them because of the human side. And I think that really differentiates ourselves.
Where would you like to do better in technology in the future? So supporting that relationship approach, where do you aspire to say, hey, team, we can do better here with tech as it relates to relationship banking?
It's a really good question. I think we have a 3-year technology roadmap. We're very clear on where we're going with our roadmap.
Hmm.
And I think the next phase for us is more of knowing our customers when they are in a digital space so that we're more active in offering them the next best product. But I have to say, we've got this roadmap. It's working very well. We've done a lot of work on our core.
What's interesting is, as Steve asked that question, Maria, we've talked in past episodes about the concept of trust in a digital space, and how it used to be you could sit in an office together, have a conversation like we're having. Now you can be distributed across the U.S. You've got to have opportunities to be authentic, and you're, obviously transparent at some times. In other moments, you need to have some privacy. And I think it's an interesting shift in the way people approach business relationships, not just in the business of banking, but really across industries. And I think this is why, when Steve and I talk to different corporate leaders, there's a sense of what's worked in the past will not necessarily take us forward. We've got to re-examine, where we position ourselves in an industry. But I think this kind of ties into a question that Steve and I both want to talk to you about. Steve, you were listening to the Cars and had a lyric or two that you used when you texted me a question you wanted to ask. So I'm going to give you the opportunity to float this one to Maria.
Yeah. Well, what day? I'm not listening to the Cars. Great band from Boston. And
Oh, yeah, listen, moving in stereo. You just texted me. It's so easy to blow up your problems. It's so easy to play up your breakdown. And you wanted to talk about, I think, regional and community banks and what could potentially be coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Maria, it's been the year of the pundit coming out and saying, well, this is the end of regional and community banking in America. It's a game of scale, safety and soundness. We just really need to consolidate the industry. And I know that your CEO, John, and you disagree with that, as do Al and I. So what would you say to the pundits that regional banking is a model whose time has come and gone? And what do you think the future holds for regional banking?
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Regional and community banks, they're just not going to go away. It reminds me when I started my career many, many, many years ago, and I was running consumer banking, the branch distribution early in my career, and people said, "Oh, branch banking's going to go away. You really ought to think of some other path in your career." Because no one's going to come into a branch, particularly since the evolution of the ATM and the advances in digital banking. Guess what? That never really came to fruition. And now 30, 40 years later, we still have branches, right? So I do think there will be fewer of us, due to the economic pressures that are continuing to drive consolidation. And by the way, not just economic pressures. We talked about technology earlier, but investment pressures, investment to transform and meet sort of the fast-paced digital experiences that customers are expecting. Not every bank can do that and is ready for it. We were at $7 billion 7 years ago. Today, we're over $20 billion, and we have been transforming and investing. And by the way, it's hard work. Not all community banks can do that. They don't always have the means to it. They might not have the leadership to do it. So, when I consider the banks in our band of asset size, we are well positioned. We're big enough to do what we need to do. We're agile enough to meet the needs of our consumer and businesses. And I think that also helps us be able to pivot to meet the changing headwinds. But, when you think about some of the big banks and the regulatory impact they have, I'm talking about the banks over 100 billion. They have more capital needs and requirements. And as they work to meet those increased capital requirements, they need to be probably, looking at a RWA, a risk-weighted asset diet. And they're going to be more motivated to reduce their lending. That could create opportunities for banks like us.
Yeah, for sure.
And we're always willing to take that business from the large banks.
Yeah, a lot of talk about big being 100 billion now because of the failures we saw in March. But then I think you're right, Maria, may open up a sweet spot between 10 billion and 100 billion for a lot of institutions.
Well, on the flip side, what Maria is saying, it jogs my memory. I was talking with a few bank CEOs a few weeks ago, and they we're talking about their institution, but they were looking broadly at the community bank sector, and where they see real challenges. You have legacy systems, legacy mindsets, and legacy teams, and that prohibits you from doing what you need to serve your customer base in the way they expect. And so I want to give Atlantic Union a real shout out for saying, hey, we were at a spot that a few years ago investors would have prized. It was 5 to 10 billion was the sweet spot for bank investors. That's obviously moved up market. It's not to move to satisfy investors, but it's to realize there's opportunity to grow and to create without losing the spirit that made you a smart, strong company to start with.
And we're not going to stand still. We're in a sweet spot right now at 24 billion. We do have a pending merger that will make us 24 billion. I don't think we'll stop growing. And if you're 10 to 15 billion right now, you likely need more scale to recoup the cost of being over that 10 billion. So you just have to, keep figuring out how to stay ahead of it, essentially. By the way, it doesn't mean we have it easy. I should mention, I'm sounding like it's easy. It was not easy.
No. We wouldn't ask you to come on if it was all simple
Yeah.
stuff. But I even think just in my head about the banks between 10 and 30 billion, and I think there's some 80 or so that fit that category. You're over that $10 billion hurdle. You've got opportunities in front of you, but you still have pressures to perform. You mentioned something earlier that I just wanted to circle back to, and it's all around technology and relationships and what you need to stay competitive and relevant. So to ask this question, I'm going to move from my Boston roots down to the Commonwealth of Virginia. I spent 4 years in college in Lexington, Virginia, at Washington and Lee, during the time that Dave Matthews was really hitting it out of the park. And so if anyone wants to sing along to the space between, we're strange allies with warring hearts, with a wild-eyed beast you be. And I apologize. We don't have the musical talent, nor do we have the depths of budget to get these songs streamed. But
Bailey says if I sing, there's no way it gets watermarked because it's so bad. So space between.
We're not bringing out even guitars.
I can't help. I can't sing. So,
but if we're channeling our inner Dave, very creative guy. But he leaned into relationships and partnerships early on, and I think Atlantic Union has done the same on the fintech front. So, where do you see this model of banks and tech companies really helping each other in their pursuit of growth? Because obviously, both sides need to figure that out together. You can't do it independent.
100%. I think we selectively choose our fintech partners. It's really we like to say it's the intersection of the needs of AUB and the sweet spot of the fintech. It's absolutely a critical part of our technology map. I already mentioned this about 2 years ago. We built a 3-year plan. We considered, what do we need to do to remain competitive in this ever-evolving technological landscape? And we knew we couldn't stand in place. So at the center of that plan was the modernization of our core and substantial transformation of critical areas of the bank, not just technology, by the way. That meant expanding our commercial bank products. It meant improving our teamwork, a teammate experience. The deployment of agile work environment. Our brand had to change, on and on. But I'm getting to your question about, taking the core modernization work. It drove us to say, who's our core provider? And then how do we build that plug and play adaptable environment that would allow us to be able to grab fintech solutions and easily plug and play into our environment? And of course, we have fintechs prior to this, but they don't always ideally work directly through our APIs. So where they don't, we had to create this layer, and we're absolutely there now. And in terms of the future, we're going to continue to leverage fintechs. We're not, we're too small. We're not going to build that capabilities ourselves. We're not those big banks with, lots of software engineers, right? So we have to, case by case, leverage providers that we believe can play that role. There's likely few of them, hence we're going to need to get ready to integrate them all together. And in the end, it's all about leveraging the fintech who's going to provide the right services, all under our brand, by the way, all, directly to our customers. Yeah. It's not going to be the fintech's brand and their customers. And We can talk about banks that like to use their charter and give it to other people, but that is definitely not a strategy for us.
Yeah, I think with that layer, Maria, I think what's so cool is that what we hear from fintechs is going up to the top 10. I might sit there forever in a decision. Down below in the unsophisticated community bank, I may struggle hand holding them through the technology. With that integration layer you've had, you might become an ideal customer or partner for the fintech because you're big enough to make the revenue substantial, but you also know how to execute and can make a decision entrepreneurially versus getting it, stuck in bureaucracy.
Yep. It's that whole idea of being at a place that and I call it the sweet spot where we can still be agile and entrepreneurial.
Yeah, I remember a big bank CEO saying we have 10 different departments to say no to a fintech, so
Oh,
how do
jeez.
we embrace them but have the right integration approach and of course regulatory compliance approach?
Yeah. We always say the decisions are right here. We're not calling another state for someone to make a decision or another organization. And that's the beauty of being the size that we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and being the size that you're at, you're able to model leadership behavior that I think a lot of people value and respect. I know in talking to John Asprey, who you've worked with for a while, John's the CEO of the bank. He holds you in such high regard. And I think John has done a magnificent job of building a team that respects each other and gives each other opportunities to do some really amazing work on behalf of the organization and by extension your customers, your investors, and the communities that you serve. So, we've got one more question. I want to give the floor to the only man I know who has been to both a Taylor Swift and Katy Perry concert.
Mm-hmm.
At least that will acknowledge it on a
The
podcast
only
like that.
man of my age who possibly have been to both and actually love them both, having stepdaughters who are big fans of both. But yeah, we're going to Katy Perry Roar. Katy Perry Roar. What a great inspirational song. But it really goes on something very important about Atlantic Union, which is a commitment to diversity. And I think, Maria, diversity in the broadest sense of diverse thoughts, diverse backgrounds, and of course, gender, ethnicity, etc. But you've been a great model of rising female leadership in banking. And candidly, we need more, right? How do you see making DEI authentic and real at Atlantic Union? Because it certainly seems that way as we talk to folks on your team across the country, some of your executives. I sense from John a real commitment, and from you, obviously, modeling that. How have you guys made it real?
First of all, it always starts at the top. And thank you for mentioning John Asbury because he may be a fan of mine. I'm a super fan of his. And all the success that we have here is about his leadership. And then, of course, it's about the people. And he'll say it's all about the people. It's always about the people. So we're super lucky to have John leading Atlantic Union Bank. And can I just say, gosh, I wish I wasn't a model and that female presidents and CEOs were much more prevalent. But alas, they are not. It just guts me sometime that we continue to have a challenge for women in the industry. But it is what it is. So when I first got to the bank, I have to say I was very conscious of my role as a first woman president and chief operating officer, and I took it very seriously, and I still do. And I still have a responsibility to be vocal about the importance of DEI because I do believe that we all benefit when we consider, broader perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
My career has been fueled by two things. First, what brings me joy? And second, how can I impact people in a positive way? And I get to do both of those every day in this role. And when it comes to DEI, you can't just execute DEI strategies in a vacuum. You have to understand what's going on in the world around you. So I believe strongly that leaders today need to examine, and we do this all the time, what is the makeup of our teams? Are they diverse? If not, why not? And are we getting the most of who we should be as a company if we hire the same people with the same backgrounds? The answer is absolutely not. We're not achieving the best version of ourselves without diverse talent. And we talk about this, and we don't just talk, we have plans and actions. And I believe that having more and more varied voices helps us reach, better decisions, stronger results. And I personally find I'm more enriched when I have a broader perspective. The
Yeah,
one
and
thing that was, yeah, if I could
sure.
just add, the one thing that was very personal to me was to create a new program called WIN, Women's Inclusion Network. Uh, and this was bringing together women in the company for the advancement of women in the company so that their voice can be heard. And it is a whole program. I don't have to go into the details about it, but we also welcome men, by the way, because change doesn't happen without their awareness, their action, and their understanding of how to have a more inclusive environment. And that really could fuel our success. And at the very heart of it, both John and I believe that tremendously.
Yeah, I think a resource network. Congrats on that, because I think just a big win for organizations. I have daughters who participate in their corporate resource networks and have really found them valuable. So that's an awesome best practice that should come to every bank, I think.
I'll make a really quick story. I did a long cycle on a Saturday. I was sweaty and hot, and I dropped into a CVS, and this woman saw me and she said, "Oh, you're my president." And I thought, I'm looking around like, what does she mean? And like, it took me a second. And she said, "You're the president of my bank." And I said, "Oh, yeah." She goes, "I love AUB. Can I give you a hug?" And I said, "Sure." And I'm like, "But I'm not sure you want to give me a hug right now."
Yeah, big sweaty
And
hug.
she said, "I am so proud of the fact that you're a female running the bank that I bank at. And I've told my daughter, see, you can do anything." And that's the day I said, I need to take this role even more seriously, because I do have to be able to share that story with people to say that, you can do it if you want, even if you're a woman.
Well, I think we got to just continue to amplify that message because we find diversity. There's no substitute. If
Yeah.
you want to be a strong, vibrant business, you have to be able to bring different perspectives, mindsets, personalities, ages. You've got to just have a big melting pot of ideas. And I really appreciate, Maria, being one of the examples that we can hold up. I know Steve and I spent some time with Jill Castilla on our recent podcast. We've got April Klug from Michigan State Federal Credit Union coming up. We just are trying to cast a wide net ourselves because it's just one at a time. You got to tell the story. You got to be consistent.
And Al, I think that's what a regional bank in the future. Think about diversity of everything: diversity of community, diversity of skill set, of age. We need more digital natives in regional banks, but I think that's where the regional bank melting pot can be really powerful. And so this is a huge step in how do you create a vibrant, leaning in kind of melting pot.
Yep.
Yeah. And reflecting the customers that we serve, right? And the communities that we serve. So that's why I love banking.
Well, it's why we love talking about them. Exactly. We'll geek out on this all the time, and we certainly will with upcoming episodes. But we'll just take a pause here to thank Maria. She suffered through my Boston accent. She suffered through some, well, maybe didn't suffer through the music, but certainly
No,
hopefully enjoyed it.
actually made me feel great. Are you kidding me?
Well, if we could bring a smile to somebody's face, then Steve Williams and I have done our job. So on behalf of the entire team, we just want to say thanks to Maria for joining us on this episode of Plugged In.
It's been my pleasure and my honor, Steve. Al, thank you so much.